3, 2, 1, and we are back, guys. Welcome to Rankable episode 51. I'm your host, as usual, Jared Thomas, Senior Account Executive at iPullRank. I have my super co-host to the right, best demand generation manager in the game, and best co-host, Garrett Sussman. How's it going, bro?
Yo, how's it going?
Doing good, man. Glad to see you. Glad to have you as always. And we have a special guest today, and we have a great topic. So what we want to talk about today, guys, is going to be how to utilize social media for sales and marketing, right? There's a lot of B2B brands out there that are still kind of taking an old school approach of how to utilize social media effectively. And we've got a special guest who is a master at that, right? So he has over 15 years of experience in the marketing industry, has worked for various brands like SAP, Cognizant, IKEA, Digitize, and currently is the founder of Marketing Think Consulting, where he helps companies and execs tell their stories with optimized LinkedIn profiles, customized social media playbooks, and boot camps. So I definitely was, and for those who watch this show consistently, quick fun fact before we introduce Gerry, but he also was the one I got the line from, teach them how to fish and they'll learn yourself fishing poles. So I'm a big fan of Gerry. So let's introduce him, man. Gerry Moran, how are you, brother?
Awesome, Garrett. Awesome, Garrett. And then there's like sort of an add-on to that line. They'll realize you're selling fishing poles, and then they'll buy yours, because you've built up that trust. You've explained how to use it. And then ultimately it's like, hey, let me buy this, because if I got a question, I can ask him or her on the back end and then buy more and then buy more. So yeah, that's an awesome line. I think that's a great foundation to whether it's social media, mostly B2B, but it's really content marketing, because you look at social media, they're the tracks on which great content run, and that's what content's about. Content marketing's about. Don't sell me, educate me.
Exactly.
Delight me. Yeah.
You hit the nail on the head, and it is so simple, but it's so powerful, right? Like you said, when you think of it from a sales perspective, right? The game, who wants to be sold, right? And there's so many different touch points online today where you can be creative, right? You don't have to just do the same thing, right? And we fall into that trap. I fell into it, where I think of prospects. I think I've even prospected you, Gerry. You might have an old email from me somewhere. It's like, what the heck? But man, you look at people as just prospects. They're just names as a way to get quota, and that's not the way to do sales, man.
Nah, there's this concept of push marketing and pull marketing. We started talking about that. And there's so many, these things get rebranded in so different ways, renamed so many different ways. And SAP, we were big about, the pull and the push. And really, you want the pull. What are people searching for? Put out the great content as a sales professional. Put out the great content, they'll find it. And then once you have them, not a fan of the funnel concept, but I get it. And once it gets down to the bottom, well, that's when you push out a little bit more. That's when you put the emails. But you don't send these crazy emails out until you got the cred built. And really, it is so hard, but that's sort of the magic. That's the magic. If you understand how to write, how to communicate, how to tailor it by audience, you're going to surprise and delight a lot of people. So when you send that email, I get a kick out of people reaching out to me. Hey, send me an email, and I take screen caps of like. I use it in presentations. I used to have a wall on. I used to have what I used to call the good, the bad, and ugly wall of people's LinkedIn profiles, because someone sends you something. What do? You go look and say, does this guy or does this woman walk the talk? And it's like, oh my God, look at that. And it's like, take a screen cap, because we learn by bad examples.
So true.
How do you react to that? I mean, what's your instinct? Because you see, like, everyone has their different reactions to like the awful cold pitch on LinkedIn. Do you educate? Do you kind of like, is the instinct to kind of shame if it's really bad? Do you just kind of like ignore it? How do you handle them?
Well, you know what? It all depends on time of day and the mood I'm in.
That's as real as it gets. That's a rankable moment.
It's like getting an email from the Prince of Nigeria who wants to sell me something. And so I'll respond, and just bluntly sometimes. Did you even look at my profile? Do you even know what I do? Because I mean, hey, we're all in the sales game, but if you just take 30 seconds out and have a go-to list of these are the things I'm going to at least do to get an idea of who my audience is and what their pain point is. And once I understand what their pain point is, then I could tailor something. just pull something from my bio and my LinkedIn profile, or or something, or do a little Google search, and then bake the cake, and then ice it for every individual person. Hey, sometimes it works. I just reached out to someone and I got spanked. It's like customization email. It's like, all right, I'm sorry, and then the response was, you should really spend time building one-to-one relationships with people. And mind you, this is from someone who has 37,000 LinkedIn followers. It's like, all right, I'm going to call you on that. You're not building one-to-one relationships with 30,000 people that are within your, but you can, as far as baking a cake is what I mean, there's a templatized approach. And you may have 3 types of groups of people with whom you work. And then that's it. I mean, that's sort of the pitch. It's an educational pitch. It's filled with links and all that stuff and facts, and which I think everything should be. But you ice it differently, to make it a little more tasty for that, person with whom you're connecting.
Absolutely. That's the whole approach, right? At the end of the day, you just have to take, like you said, 30 seconds, man. Look at a post, do an audit. I would do an audit of your profile, right? I would go through your last 30 days. What's important to you? What kind of comments? Then I look at how you comment so I can get a little bit of feel for your personality, right? Should I throw an emoji in there when I DM you? Should I throw some LOLs in there? Should we laugh? All that stuff matters, right? And at the end of the day, if I say, hey, man, Gerry, I just saw that you were on Rankable last week, man. I really love the point that you made about social selling. I started implementing it in my own. I would love to chat with you to get some extra feedback because this is what I'm doing now. And just off of that alone, you would consider it.
Yeah. And you know what, pro tip, before you send an email and do the research, look at that person that you're going to send an email to.
Yes.
Like a post, follow them, don't link into them. I mean, get on the radar. It's a pretty non-intrusive way to start to make an impression. You've done it, Jarrett, before you came in to ask me. It's like, oh, who's this Jarrett guy? Oh, wow. Oh, sure, I'll do it. Otherwise, I wouldn't know who you are, and you're engaging, but you're not being a jerk about it, and sure. You're sort of being respectful and standing off a little bit. But hey, you're participating in my game, and sure. So got my attention. And here we are today. So
absolutely.
And that's one thing, Gerry, I love about your website. I mean, you said earlier, like you have know who you're going after. So it's very clear, like you've got your executive teams, you got your professionals, you got your students where you're helping them out with their LinkedIn. And then you've got these playbooks. What do those playbooks look like? Like how thought out are your interactions in advance with your targets? Like, are you planning out months in advance of I'm going to start this relationship in, where are we, September now, but I'm not actually going to try and reach out until December?
Got it. So great. So let's take a step back. What the playbooks are? The playbooks are, and I just spoke at a digital summit in Philly about this. They're they help you scale your idea. So it really works anywhere. Whether it's a sales play, whether it's an event. So when you're at an event, there's a certain way that you operate with content and social media. It breaks down every single part that needs to be done. So we're not winging it. We're not shooting from the hip. All playbooks, the line I used that got me in trouble with some people online was, playbooks help get shit done. And so it's not a zero-sum game every time you meet with someone. It's like, I've thought through your strategy. I've thought what needs to be done, whether it's for you, the client, okay? Because playbooks, work well for clients, but they also work well internally. Or if I'm going to do something on my sales team, this is the shit that needs to be done. And exactly, we can talk about it, but if we make it more muscle memory, and that's what playbooks do, then we spend more time working on the business instead of in the business. So every time we decided to do anything, you don't want to, it's not a zero-sum conversation. You'll go crazy. You'll work Saturdays. You'll work Sundays. If you do it right, you don't have to work, that much. You want to be smart about it. Yeah. And the smarter you are, the higher, closer to the sun you can sell. And that ends up being a really good thing. Personally, I build a playbook for every pain point possible. So when I look, I ran social media globally for Cognizant, ran it for North America for SAP, and there's a lot of pain points. And I built the practice in a way where there's governance, there's insights, there's content development, there's channel management, there's executive voice, there's employee advocacy. there's a lot to do. This is not about these B2B brands or or any kind of brands hiring someone who's fresh out of college and say, hey, send up some tweets, send up some tweets. No, it's a model, it's an operating model, and everyone has a pain point. At the end of the day, we're trying to get people aware of what we do. Whether you're a salesperson, whether you're a marketer, whether you're a CPG company, you want to build consideration, okay, which is putting out great content, because you're not going to build consideration unless you put out great content, and then finally start a conversation. So
that's it.
Social and content, awesome. If I can make it an SQL, a sales qualified lead, okay. But all I want is a conversation. The rest is gravy. We tied it into. We built an awesome system when I was at SAP to tie social into pipe. It's like because honestly, it's trying to save my job. And it's like, all right, I have someone who doesn't understand this. Loved everyone I worked with, but it's like, all right, it's like it's any other like sort of leader close to the sun. They don't get it. How do I do this? How can I say that because we did X, we touched $250,000 or $1 million worth of pipe? And that's and how you get there. Well, you get there with, all right, I got typically a social media team or a content marketing team is a small team. So you need to scale. So you get the core people in the room, figure out what to do, and then it's just a lot easier to do to make a point. So anything I do and anything, when I go fishing, it's keeping that in mind that, all right, these are the things that I can do right now. It's the playbook. It's the profile. It's the personal branding, and it's all behind the curtains, like the Wizard of Oz. It's all the dials and everything to make it happen. That, hey, it's a party of two with my company. So it's myself and my partner. There's only so much we can do. But I've done this before, and I see the field a certain way. These playbooks and the concept of playbooks work for you guys. It works for absolutely anybody. Just write the shit down. In the order that it needs to happen, and pay attention to it, and then socialize it. Going up the ladder to show people that you have a clue.
You hit the nail on the head, man. I think a good point, and something that bothers me about B2B brands, right? I feel like at least on social media, they don't have a personality, right? So I'll give you a quick story. Like, one of my friends or mentors, he actually owns a store, 70 stores globally, right? And around the time where the Asian hate thing was increasing, I was surprised that he didn't, say something from the brand. And he gave me a valuable lesson. He said, man, that's separate for me. My brand has a personality. It's going to be sunshine and ice cream and cakes and stuff like that, kid friendly, all that other stuff. We can't, miss up or, confuse the two, right? So why do you think there's like B2B brands are so boring or they don't have a personality? I have not seen a B2B brand that controls social conversation the way like a Wendy's would. Why do you think that's true?
I think there's a lot of CEOs that are out there. There's a lot of CMOs that are out there that are very conservative and command and control. And you could easily do an exercise, and I've done this exercise with people that you could take your social media post, your graphic on social, and take your logo off and put it, someone else's on. I mean, it's a real basic branding exercise. And you'd be surprised how much that happens, without naming any players. And I to get back to the root of the question, I think it's too much of a focus on sales. It's not, people want to harvest the fruit before they planted the seed. And, if you plant enough seeds in the right ways, in the right areas, you're going to have this giant harvest at the end versus just like, well, I want it tomorrow. So it's just focus on sales, and it's a good thing, but it just needs to be, I think, repositioned.
For sure.
And then leadership at times, it's driven by leadership. It's do as I say, not what is right. And and that's tough. That is tough when your content has to be right. There's a cacophony of content out there, which is my favorite saying, one of my favorite sayings, and it's just the same. It's vanilla. It's not targeted. And what it is, it's like I checked it off my list. I've got my KPI. Put out my 26-page white paper this week, or I put out my 10 posts. Hey, boss, see what I did? And there's too much of that going, is it a content marketing expert? Is it a social media expert? Is it a touch point expert? I mean, there's so many different touch points that are out there.
For sure.
The ecosystem. So I think that's one of the reasons why, from what I have seen and other people with whom I spoke.
I agree with you 100%. I think the ones that do it really well, like shout out to Chris Walker and Refine Labs and a few other different companies. I think Gong does a really good job. But I think it really, like you said, it comes from the top down. Right? Like we need to see you doing it. If you're the leader, we need to see you out there. We need to put your personality out there. You can't be too sales focused, right? And I say this all the time. Like for me personally, when I started my content approach, I was like, man, SEO isn't the sexiest of topics, right? And at the end of the day, you know, my boss is the search marketer of the year. Like, what can I say differently from him? You know what I mean? So how can I differentiate myself? And the one way to do it is like, well, I was 20 years old. I worked at Starbucks and I ended up finding a path to digital sales. And look what I've done from here, right? And now it brings the sales barrier down. Now it's like, okay, this is an actual person. And now when I'm in your DM or something, I'm just a regular guy, man. Do you want to grab a beer? Do you want to do this? Do you want to talk shop? We can do whatever you want to do, right? And if it doesn't happen, doesn't mean I can't sell to you tomorrow. Doesn't mean I can't work with you tomorrow. You just have to have that. And I think it's such a focus on metrics, like you said, and BS metrics at that, right? Like personally right now for what we're doing brand-wise, I've amassed maybe a couple of 100,000 views. I can't say what's come to the website specifically, but I know we have an increase in traffic based on what we're doing here. And I know other people, the DMs tell the stories.
Yeah, and, you know, it's better to have a couple 100,000 views than have 10 views, right?
Exactly. Exactly. And where else can you do that for free?
Right.
For free.
And it's not that the views, but there's other things you can do on social. One is what I do all the time. I do polls. And polls are like, I jumped on them as soon as they came out. Just an awesome place to start a conversation. One, it's how you ask the question, how you throw some context around the question. And right there, it seems like, wow, that's a great question that this person posed. And so if someone looks at personally, my polls, I'll say, all right, this guy has more of a clue than less of a clue, which is great.
Exactly.
And then we vote, and then I see who votes. And then a lot of people have comments, which is what are we trying to do on social when we do this stuff? We're trying to have a conversation. And I go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. Now that's great as an individual. Now, when you go back to that conservative place, and I know of people that used to run these polls, and then they decided, no, we can't run the polls anymore because we're not really quite sure what you're trying to do or what the message that we want to get across, or what do you mean by that question? It's like, too much of a command and control, where people weren't getting that at anywhere. The polls are a good, solid thing. You look at someone like, I think it's like Infosys or TCS. I think it's Infosys. They get 4,000 votes on their poll. That's an engaged audience, and then talk about fish in a barrel. They're your fish, or that's the barrel. Your fish are those 4,000 votes. And now we start to have one-on-one conversations with them, like their stuff, go through and say, all right, this person's this particular title. He's on the buying team. She's on the buying team. And then there you go. It's a little creativity, but that's
the beauty of interactive, right? You get the data from the user, and now we can use that in a way to leverage that to create more conversations. That's the beauty of it, guys. So if a company like Infosys that's using that for 4,000 followers and actually engaging with them, they have data about these users that the next company won't have. That's unique to them.
Right. Now you got to worry about privacy and GDPR.
Yeah, that type of stuff.
And having conversations are fine.
Exactly.
And I think that's where a lot of people miss out. Whether you're a B2B brand, whether you're in a sales organization, is looking at triggers. I mean, LinkedIn alone has like 33, 36 triggers, from birthdays to job changes to, posting, whatever it is. Some are going to be ranked a little bit higher. You draw the line above the line and below the line. There's a handful that are above the line, but they're triggers. And, figure out what the triggers are. Otherwise, it's just, spray and pray. And I'm going to put a post out there, and I hope someone calls me. No. See what they do. If someone voted on your poll, especially easy to do it, as a sales professional. Someone voted on your poll. Ask them, hey, thanks for voting on my poll. What you think? And they may come back, and again, it's not salesy. They engage with you. They gave you permission to reach out to them because they, in a very passive and unintrusive way, I guess that would be the right word. They're saying, hey, this is what you think. Let's open up the conversation. A lot of people are shy.
Right, and that's all part of like the playbook, I imagine, of like that muscle memory of like just kind of moving that engagement along. I'm curious when the C-level folks, when they come to you, because like you talk about like helping them out with their profile, do you have like a ideal type of client? Like do they ever come on their own accord, or are they coming like because the organization is like sending them there? Like what does that look like?
Yeah, it's a combination of that. And it's the hands-on approach is a lot lighter and sensitive than if we were going to do both of your profiles. Both of your profiles, we top to bottom. We looked at, we would take it apart because you're trying to start the conversations. A C-level exec, they are the face of the company, okay? Yeah. And typically they're not going to talk as much as you guys would online. And there's typically the way in that there's two talk tracks. There's the branded talk track, and then there's one thing that they might have a superpower with. It might be AI, it might be automation, it might be search, whatever, it might be MarTech, whatever it is. And you can't have the execs worry about, I want to talk about these 5 things. Okay. It just doesn't work. It's hard enough to get an executive say LinkedIn and Twitter, and it's not. I mean, they all should be on Twitter, but let's just focus on where the fish are first, which is LinkedIn. And there is an approach. They typically come to say, hey, my profile doesn't look great. Or the talent acquisition or HR will say, these execs profiles don't look good. Or throw 10 of them up on the wall, and they all look different, which is problematic for a Fortune 500 company. And it happens. If I were, and even a small mid-sized business, I'd make sure all my execs are singing from the same songbook. Just like, let's just look good. It's good branding. And then you don't go as deep. You focus on things like the headline, things like voice, things like the about section. And that's when people start to roll their eyes and say, I don't have time for this. This is my day job. Well, no, but if someone looks at it and say, oh my God, look at this guy. Someone like Julie Sweet from Accenture does an awesome job. Okay. And most of the exec at Accenture, get it right. So when you're looking at a big brand to say who gets it right, how do the execs use content? Accenture's awesome. That's always been my aspirational brand of all the companies I've worked for in B2B.
Yeah. And well, that's the interesting thing, actually, now that I think about it, is I can imagine for a Fortune 500 executive, their goals on LinkedIn are completely different than like a salesperson, mid-level, even just like a smaller business. Like, what are they trying to achieve? Is it all just like PR and high-level brand stuff or anything else?
It's great. First of all, it's not to screw up. Because they watch what they say. I mean, it sounds silly, but they're the face of the company. Who looks at their profiles? Their competition, their peers. Okay, so it's sort of like, don't embarrass yourself. The street, the analyst, the advisors, all these people. So it's carefully curated. It has to be carefully curated, unless you were like, when I worked at SAP. Jonathan Becker. Jonathan ran his own stuff. Awesome. And I think he's on with the San Jose Sharks now. But he did a great job, and he was truly hands-on. Someone like Julie Sweet probably has someone that works with her. Other C levels, the ones that I know, have directors of communications that work with them, and so they don't screw up. Then there's the PR, because that's where the corp comms, getting that corp comms type of message out there. And then it's banging the drum for whatever particular thing that they want to sell. And you go within a big organization, let's say like an Oracle, and they're going to be selling different things, and their execs are probably going to have a talk track. Someone might talk about diversity and inclusion. Someone might talk about something that they sell, and that's great. It's a team. And if they're all covering the important things that are above the line, that's a good thing. Someone has to coordinate that. Does that happen?
And that goes back to your initial conversation around when you know who you're targeting and know what their pain points are. like you're ready to speak to that. You're ready to speak to like the C-suite versus when you do talk to like a professional and they are really like much more in the weeds and know like people like doing things for them basically.
Yeah. To make the sale, the closer to the sun you get, the simpler it has to be to understand it, to find it useful, to understand the impact. And as closer to the sun you get, it's the dashboard, it's 3 numbers, it's something simple. I got to get on the sell. I got $1 billion sale going on. I got a $500,000 order coming in. They're not going to pay attention, but they understand it's important.
How do you stay away from the sun yourself?
Don't call me Icarus. Floating down to the earth. You pick it up with years of experience. You just, and you come in with just a simple pitch. It's like if you had 30 seconds in an elevator, if anyone goes into an elevator anymore and ran into the person that's going to make that decision for your sale, you're not gonna get into the weeds of the features and benefits. You're gonna get into the weeds like, hey, I understand your problem. These are the 3 things I can do. There you go. And hey, you got my attention. Okay, now talk to my person. And that's sort of there.
You actually brought up a great question for me, right? I'm curious, like say 2 years from now, I'm a firm believer that social selling is going to be the way to go, right? I feel like having a personal brand is going to be the only way you're going to be able to penetrate enterprise accounts and build that trust and all that other good stuff. But like, say for instance, you're in a big organization like Oracle, right? You have 100,000 followers, right? Versus a salesperson who has 8,000 followers. Should you be compensated more for that? Or what is the value of that?
What, of you and your 8,000 followers?
No, just 8,000 versus somebody who has 100,000. So say, for instance, I have 100,000. I'm at Oracle. I post every single day. Right. I've generated millions of impressions for the brand. What is the value of that? It's like the value of a stream to me. That's how I like kind of compute it.
You're sort of investing in yourself. So I think that makes your sale and your value prop a little more compelling. If you build that up. And to your point, Gerry, the way of the future is social selling. I just think it becomes selling. That's what selling is. If you look like digital marketing, there is really no more regular marketing unless you work for a brand and have just TV. And it's like ABM. It's all sort of ABM.
Exactly.
It just and I think the biggest concern though, and fears is relying too much on tech. Relying too much on, because ABM, you can just go into this abyss and like we do this and we do that, we do 6 Sense, we do this. It's like, and they're all tools, to help build the machine. It's just using the right one at the right time. But at the end of the day, it's understanding how to communicate and how to build your particular audience, your 8,000 followers, and how to curate that. And ultimately, it's going to get into the MarTech machine. But too many people from the CMO down rely on MarTech because what it ends up being, it ends up bringing a bright, shiny object that I can point to my boss and say, hey, we got this. Look at these metrics. And here's what her boss may say, I guess that's good.
Looks good to me. I feel it. Yep. Totally agree.
You've seen that. That's certainly something. I just don't think you can automate the conversation game. Helping people nurture and cultivate, what their opportunities, what their problems are, so you can come in and solve. That's one man's point of view.
I agree with you, man. You have to be genuine. Like people sniff that stuff, to sniff that shit from a mile away, right? Obviously, I'm in sales. I want to sell it to you, right? But I'm not going to pitch on the very first DM. I've got a list of things that you should and should not do. And I'm curious for you. My last question for you, Gerry, is from LinkedIn, right? What are your thoughts on stories, and what are some trends that you're seeing right now for people who are listening that they may want to start building their personal brand or want to, use social more effectively, specifically LinkedIn? So what are your thoughts about stories, and what are some trends that you're identifying currently?
Whenever you can use video, and some sort of animation, think about it. Just what is native behavior? People are, you got to capture their attention. Okay. It's got to be short, whether it's like 9 to 15 seconds, and it's got to add some value. So whether it's stories or short form video, that's the place to start. The key is it's simple and it's focused and you pay attention to the trend. At the end of the day, it's really old school. It's about direct marketing, and it's given me that right message at the right time on the right channel to the right audience. When I worked at HBO, I worked at HBO for 19, 20 years, and that's all we did. We did direct response TV. That was the first time that has come out of my mouth. Or direct mail, or we had direct mail TV.
I remember those days.
Look for the direct piece of direct mail that's going to come in your box. But at the same time, it's adding value and getting people with the right. Are stories the way to go for B2B? I don't know.
Probably not. I liked it as a salesperson because it allowed me to create good conversations. If you viewed my stories, I can send a DM to you and it's not intrusive, like you say. So I liked it, and I actually could see who's actually reading my stuff, right? The views are kind of fluffy. You get 5,000 views and fugazi. But you know what I mean?
And like Insta was something that we had to build stories, we had to build channels, we had to be on Instagram. At the end of the day, if I'm working for a big B2B tech company, besides culture and a talent acquisition play, where the play probably would be here's examples of what our customers are doing with our stuff. That I think is just that would just knock it out of the park. But if you have $1 to spend, is that juice worth the squeeze to spend it on all that video production for a story on Insta or even for a post on Insta? I don't know. If I had an unlimited budget, I'd do a lot. But if I have a budget, and I want to get more budget next year, I'm going to have to make sure $1 I spend gets me, 10x, 15x, exactly, whatever that KPI is going to be.
Exactly. And I do want to say or comment what you said about the value, right? And somebody asked me this, and I would love to hear both of your takes on this, right? I hate the word value. I think it's very subjective, right? If you just think about value, because what's valuable to you, Gerry, may not be valuable to me, right? I'm pretty sure there's a lot of information I have. I'm like, every salesperson knows this. And then I see it 2 weeks later, somebody posted on LinkedIn and it's got 1,000 likes. I'm like, damn it, I knew it. You know what I mean? Like, so I think we shouldn't get hung up on value too much. You just have to do what feels right to you, right? Whether it's storytelling, whether it's like I've put up post about somebody ghosting me on a phone call and I got 100 likes, right? Because that's real. That's what happens, right? I'm 8:00 at night. I've got a meeting. I could be with my kids and you just ghosted me without saying anything. It happens. Yeah. You know what I mean? So like the value part is very subjective, but I would love to hear, like, what do you say to somebody who's like, what is valuable? Like, how do I know what is value for my audience? How should I create content based on that?
Well, I mean, your ears to the ground. You have to pay attention, by you being engaged and reading and following the posts. There's so much out there. So true. The spidey senses have to kick in to say, all right, this is what and you don't understand that unless you read and engage. You can't spend your whole day in the 50 LinkedIn groups that you follow. Okay, you can't. But my advice is you follow 2 or 3. You follow those leading edge bloggers that have a point of view, and then you take that point of view and wrap it in your point of view to people. And what are the general pain points that are out there? And I think that's where you start. People obviously don't want to be sold to right away, so you figure out what those things that people are. For a while it was mobile, and it was probably AI, it was probably AR. It's like you get a lot of people saying, or even ABM for that matter. ABM. Do you understand what ABM is? So everyone's just dropping this ABM, and I've been places like that. All right. What about adding social ABM? Well, why would we do that? Oh, God, it's just really, I've had that conversation before. But it's the what you think everybody knows, and being able or something that's complex. They're probably one and the same, and wrap it in your point of view that breaks it down into something that's really simple. And I think that's how you get to what you're trying to get to.
Yeah, I'm with you. You're building content, you want to resonate, and the big issue that comes full circle as we bring this to an end is just this issue of building relationships and wanting to scale at the same time. And how do you come to terms with both of those issues, where it's like you want to get your message out to as many people, but you also need to have that time for those one-to-one conversations. Time is what, to answer your question, Jared, I think your own time is the value, right?
Yeah. So true, man. I love both points, man. Thank you so much. I know Gerry will a couple minutes over,
Gerry.
man, but I want to thank you so much, brother. I've always
This is great. It went like that.
I know, man. I'm a big fan of yours, man. I'm always rooting for you, brother. Thank you for what you've been able to help me with my content strategy, man. Because that one line and me seeing you post every single day, man, gave me confidence to keep going out there. So thank you, brother. I really appreciate you. You got a beer and a lunch anytime you're in New York. You let me know. I'll meet you anywhere. Free beers on me, my treat, man.
Favorite brewery I have in Brooklyn.
I'll be there. You tell me the time, brother. I'll be there. But thank you again for everybody watching, guys. Next week we have a great episode. We actually have the Nikki Ivy, who's actually a top LinkedIn voice, right? So she's gonna be trying to, piggybacking off these same points that we've been speaking about today. We appreciate all the love and the support, guys, and we see you guys next week, man. Gerry, thanks again, brother.
Thank you, Gerry.
Pleasure.